Hello, everyone. My name is Drew Hiss. I'm the founder and chairman of Acumen, and today's host for the Sharpen podcast, brought to you by Acumen, a growth community for business owners and CEOs who aspire to grow the top line, optimize their bottom line, and enrich their storyline. Got a fantastic guest join us today, a friend and comrade in the world of entrepreneurship and business ownership, Bobby Grunwald. Read Bobby's bio before I turn the mic over to him and we hear from him. I always love to really honor somebody by making sure I don't shortcut or try to do my own little shoot from the hip introduction of somebody. But Bobby serves as pastor, innovation leader of Life Church based in Oklahoma City, and is the founder and CEO of YouVersion, a ministry sharing the Bible with the world for free. And that's a key piece of, I think, their strategy is for free through a family of apps, which have been installed in more than 1 billion devices. And we'll come back to that important number and milestone. As one of the leading voices in the church on innovation and the use of technology, Grunwald has been featured in the New York Times, TechCrunch, CNN, BBC, and more. Prior to joining the Life Church team in 2001, he started and sold 2 technology companies, as well as served as in advisory capacities for various startups and venture capital funds. Bobby and his wife, Melissa, live in Oklahoma City and have 4 children. Bobby, welcome to the Sharpen podcast. It's fantastic to have you on today as we on-ramp into this discussion. Maybe share a little bit about your background. In the introduction, I talked about the past as a technology company entrepreneur. So give us a little bit of an elevator speech on your past and history.
Sure. Andrew, thank you so much for having me on the program. It's an honor to be here with you. My past is a little bit eclectic in that I went to college. I grew up in Illinois, moved to Oklahoma for college. And when I was in college, I studied finance. And I thought this is kind of God's direction for my life. And I had never thought about being an entrepreneur, had no models of it in my life. My parents weren't entrepreneurs and I didn't have any family that were. Didn't even know that I had any gifts for it. But I took a job in college, honestly, for date money at a car dealership, working in the back office. And just to kind of be brief about the story, it was a job that was really boring. And I was listening in on conversations back in 1995 that were happening in the back of the dealership. And there was a group from California presenting an opportunity to build a website for this car dealership. And 1995, for those of you that can remember, was very early on in the days of websites, but they wanted $2,200 for this, effectively a template website. And so I went up to the owner. His name was Mr. Bailey, Steve Bailey. And I said, Mr. Bailey, if you will let me build a website for you, I'll do it for $100. And he looked at me and he was just like, sure. Like, I don't know if I'd even ever talked to him before. I think it might've been the first conversation I'd ever had with him. And so I went. The problem was I had no idea how to build a website, and there were like no books about how to build a website. I was just trying to take on a challenge. So I went and built him a website, and I said, "You're not going to sell cars in 1995 in Oklahoma on the internet, but I do think we could build another website that would sell parts and accessories." And so we built a website selling car parts and accessories called HondaParts.com. And within a few months, they were selling hundreds of thousands of dollars in car parts and accessories out of the back of this car dealership. And I was still getting paid $6 an hour. But my job was interesting and I loved doing it. And Mr. Bailey called me in his office and said, "What do you plan on doing in life?" And before I had a chance to answer, he said, "Whatever it is that you're going to do, I want to invest in it."
Wow.
And so God used a Christian businessman to see something in me that I didn't see in myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when I realized that maybe God was directing me into an entrepreneurial path. And that's what I did. I put together a business plan for a web hosting company. And again, my degree is in finance. I'm not an engineer. I understand technology pretty well, but I'm more of like a person that can speak technology and speak business.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started this company. We had no idea what we were doing. I was a full-time college student, but our first customers from Germany. And then over the course of about 18 months, we had customers in 33 countries, and we were like providing tech support to Japan in the middle of the night. And it was just kind of a crazy college dorm room type story. That was the first company that I had. And so we sold it about 2 years in, and I'd graduated college at this point and started another company.
Paid for college. You got out of college debt free. It's basically what
Well, yeah, I never really thought about that, but that's actually true. We did get out of there. We had debt in the middle of it because when you as you run a business, we weren't taking salaries of any sort during this. It was all came on the backside. But yeah, looking back on it, I never even thought about that. But yeah, it paid for college
There you
and
go.
more. And I started another company after that, and it's very eclectic background here. But that company was the largest professional wrestling website. We acquired it out of New York City. The idea was to find basically an affinity group that had like strong community connection online,
Hmm.
and to grow it. Back then, page views were the metric that Wall Street cared about, just the number of times you can run an ad on a website. And so we grew it from, I think it was just a few million page views per month when we bought it, to about 15 or 16 million page views a month about 15 months later. And we sold it to a company that Goldman Sachs took public. It's a company based out of San Francisco. And so at this point now, I'm 23 years old, started and sold a couple of companies, felt like this is what God had designed me to do.
Hmm.
I seem to have favor in it. And so my mind naturally is already on to like four more ideas and thinking about what's next. And then God kind of intercepted me with something different, which led me on to the staff of my church. Very surprising thing for me and for everybody. But that was the early part of my journey, though, as an entrepreneur.
Right. This it almost sounds like you were an accidental entrepreneur in some ways. Did Did you know that this little project you took on at the car dealership was going to manifest itself in this way?
No, of course not. It's interesting looking back on it. There's all these entrepreneurial gifts I could see that were in me long before that time, which is
Right.
probably what led me to propose building the website and taking this on.
Right.
Not because I saw myself as an entrepreneur, but because I just kind of had these gifts. I would have ideas and I would build teams around them and I would make them happen. I would just think in ways about where there's a need or an opportunity and we could meet that need. And that was kind of my journey even through high school. But I just didn't have words for it. Like I didn't have a vocabulary or words for it. So I never really put the pieces together until Mr. Did it for me. And by the way, he's still alive. And every quarter I go to breakfast with him and make sure that he knows his connection to my journey, and we remind him of it. Because God used him like in a really significant way to help illuminate that very thing you're talking about that I didn't see.
Right. So the have you had any ideas that you tried to build teams around that didn't result in a company that grew and scaled and sold?
Good question. Well, yes. Well, we've had ideas that failed initially, and then I mean the YouVersion, the entire Bible app thing that we were talking about, or going to talk about, I'm sure some more, started actually as a failure. The entire beginning of it was that most people don't realize the initial idea was for a website, not for an app.
Hmm.
And the website had all kinds of features and did some novel things, put a lot of energy into it, had to overcome a lot of obstacles to get it built, had to ask a lot of people to effectively donate their time and to believe in a vision,
Hmm.
and to find out 3 months in that it literally didn't work, like didn't change the way we engaged in the Bible. So that whole story started as a failure. Now it didn't end as one, but it definitely started as one.
Interesting.
And so that's an example. On the business front, never got far enough to where we put a team together. I mean, it failed, but it was, after the second company, I spent quite a bit of time running down a lot of different ideas about what the next venture was going to be. We had some space to do it. And some of those we put a lot of energy into some of them only to kind of discover or determine that we didn't think it was like the right risk profile, like it wasn't going to be the right thing. So there's a number of those types of things, but I haven't gotten far enough. I didn't have a very long stint as an entrepreneur in terms of my age.
Right.
So in those few years, I was pretty well consumed with just those two things that we started and sold.
All right. So back before I interrupted you, or on this pathway toward the Life Church engagement, tell us how you became connected with that opportunity and why you accepted it.
Yeah, it's a great question. I was, you know, my wife and I, we moved well, in the middle of that second company that I had, we moved to a different part of the city, just built a house, and when we moved to that part of the city, we're like, we really want to find a church community that we can get connected to and plugged into. Someone had recommended this new church called Life Church. It was just I mean, pretty well brand new church, maybe a couple years old.
Hmm.
We came to it and absolutely fell in love with it on the very first weekend. You could just see lives being changed, and the atmosphere was just everything we wanted to be a part of. So we quickly got plugged in. And I was, of course, full-time entrepreneur, but I started playing keyboard on the worship team as a volunteer. And so every weekend, in spite of working crazy hours as an entrepreneur, between all those hours, I would serve at the church. And we had, I think, as many as 6 services that I would play at on a weekend because we were really growing and trying to keep up with the growth. So I was very, very involved as a lay person in the church, about as close to the mission of the church as a layperson could possibly get, at the time. And so when we sold the second company, my picture appeared on the front page of the newspaper with a story about the sale of the company. And the executive pastor at Life Church saw it, and he's like, "Isn't that the guy that plays keyboard on the worship team?" And so I never talked about what I did in business at church. Like I never even thought the two things were in the same universe or had any relevance. So no one actually knew what I did. I just was at the church serving.
Right.
And he wanted to go to lunch with me. I initially thought he wanted to go to lunch to help me calculate what 10% was on that number that he saw in the paper. But and which of course isn't actually a problem because my wife and I were givers and love to
Yeah.
give. But instead, he asked me a completely different question, which was, have you ever considered using like the way you think and the learnings you've had in business and the way you understand technology? Have you ever thought about using that like on staff in the church? I was like, never thought of it. Like,
Hmm.
which is a little bit interesting because I generally am a person that connects dots all the time and looking at opportunities and see things that people don't see.
Right.
But for whatever reason, I didn't see it at all. And he said, "Well, would you consider it?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "What do you mean?" He said, "Oh, okay." And I said, "Well, I love my church, and if it became my job, I just thought that might not be a
Yeah.
good idea."
Right. If I
So I
saw how
just
the
said,
sausage was being made, I might.
"Yeah, no, like, well," and honestly, I didn't really trust myself in some ways because I felt like at that point, and I mean, I remember I'm like 23 years old. At that point in time, everything in my life had like a 2-year expiration date on it. Like I would start
Yeah.
something and I'm ready to do the next thing and ready to do the next thing. And I just sort of felt like, well, this could go bad if I join the staff of the church and then 2 years from now I'm ready to go do something else. Um, so anyway, so I said, how about I just volunteer and give you my time, for free? It's more of it, like I just help in some other ways. And that went from like 10 hours a week to 20 to 30 to 40 hours a week over the next year. And so about a year later, it just became apparent. I felt really clearly that God was saying, this is a surprise, but this is what I want you to step into. This is what I'm calling you to do. And that's not the case for everybody. And I know it's obviously it's not everybody's path,
Hmm.
but for me, that was the journey. So so I officially stepped on the team. This year will be 25 years that I've been serving on staff.
Wow. Well, I don't know a lot about Life Church. I listen to Craig Groeschel's teaching and leadership and admire the growth and he strikes me as an innovative individual, like not your, maybe dare I say, not the typical stereotypical pastor, but a very innovative, think out of the box. And maybe that's how you guys really connected. I don't, maybe share some of that about his leadership style and his approach to
Yeah.
reaching more people.
Well, I feel like I won the lottery a little bit when it came to coming on a team and having a great leader. Before, like I mentioned, before I came on the team, I was the leader of these businesses, that I had. You can kind of think it takes a unique position to kind of go from being the person that makes all the calls to then working on a team where you're not the person, right, that makes all the calls. But Craig is so unique in that he's just a very empowering leader. He delegates authority, not just responsibility.
Hmm.
And so it basically, my title actually is CEO of YouVersion.
Right.
So I do run YouVersion. I started it. I'm the CEO, but yet that can be a part of our church and still be something that kind of he basically leads in a way that just allows that to happen, I guess is a good way
Right.
to say it. And which takes, I think it takes a leader that's very secure and understands who they are.
Amen.
And it's not a competitive environment or anything like that. We were not, I didn't really know, he was my pastor, but honestly, I didn't really know him well as a leader and we weren't like personally connected when I first came on staff.
Hmm.
So most people presume that he would have hired me.
Right.
He actually didn't hire me. It was the executive pastor at the church that hired me. And for the first few years, he was, I think, trying to figure out what I did and who I was and those kinds of things. And somewhere along the way, God just kind of put us together in a really special relationship that I think neither one of us knew we would have. And we're best friends today. Let's say it didn't start that way, but definitely are today. And I think I have an appreciation that I've grown to have just for what it means to be in his role. And I
Yeah.
think he kind of sees the same thing in me. So we kind of are able to kind of be there for each other, I think, in a real helpful way. So it's a unique dynamic. And I really do have his back. And I also try to be a voice of truth for him,
Hmm.
which is really tough sometimes when you're in these point leadership positions. And I need the same thing in my life. But it's really hard sometimes as things are successful to find those people. So I feel really called to be that for him.
Hmm.
And it takes a high degree of trust, and it doesn't mean that we always get along and don't have some battles along the way. But to be 25 years in, I feel like God's kind of knit us together, I think, in a real unique way. And that's not just true of Craig, but also the other leaders that we have. There's four of us that have been together for pretty much this whole 25 years,
Yeah, that's
which is also unique
for sure.
in leadership. So he's special, and I'm very, very privileged to be under his leadership and to learn so much from him over these years.
No, that's terrific. And lottery is a great word, right? Because I think what you just described, that 25 years with a group of senior leaders that are that high capacity, is really rare, really unusual.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I'll just say this, Drew, real quick in response. But here's the interesting thing: is I don't feel like we were all high capacity when we came on the team. I feel like we. Meaning I feel like we grew into it
right.
together.
Yeah,
And I think sometimes people discount kind of the value of that. But like people just have we have the ability to grow so much if we just are in the right environments to be
right.
able to do it. So we don't have to come in as experts. We don't have to come in as people. Because I mean, what are the probabilities, I guess, that in a church of less than 1,000 people that you would have four high caliber leaders, right? That would have this ability to lead things at the scale it is. And the answer is we weren't really those people when we started. That we kind of grew into those people over
Right.
time. So sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I
No,
think
no,
sometimes it's important for people
that's a
to
great
hear.
point. And it speaks
Yeah,
to the environment that has been created where four high potential leaders have become high capacity leaders. And
yeah,
I think that's one of just in listening to some of Craig's leadership teaching, a big takeaway for me is the environment he tries to create for sure. So let's pivot back to the YouVersion app and kind of share a little story about that. I'd love to know kind of how YouVersion lives inside the church or alongside the church and how you've structured that even as we get into the deeper elements of the conversation. But kind of share the story about the YouVersion app and give our audience the incredible story that is.
yeah. Well, it started in 2006. So we're recording this podcast here, but coming up later this year will be the 25th anniversary 20th anniversary um, of the idea. It started in the airport security line in Chicago, October 2006. I was, for whatever reason, in a long TSA line, just thinking, I wonder if there's a way to use technology to help me read the Bible. I felt like I was a below average Bible reader, and I probably wasn't below average, but I felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to be a part of my life that's more consistent. And it's kind of a weird excuse because people are like, well, just have a discipline and do it. It's like, I know, but for whatever reason, I tried those things and it just couldn't kind of get in the right rhythm. So I thought maybe technology could help. So I had this idea for a website initially. And as I mentioned, that website failed when we launched it in 2007. But back then, the environment here, and still to this day, but back then in particular at the church, um, I was sort of in a role where I had some flexibility to dream a little bit about new ideas and be almost like an entrepreneur in residence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd bring these kind of crazy ideas to the team and just say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. And then every once in a while, we'd come across one, they'd be like, man, I think this is one we should try. So that was one of those. Now, what that meant back then was not that I meant that I was blessed to go try it, but it didn't mean there was a budget. So we had no resources back then, no extra resources to do anything. So I was kind of like, you had to be really scrappy, had to kind of
Mm-hmm.
figure out how to get people to contribute time and figure out how to scrape together kind of the resources necessary to get something off the ground, which was totally okay with me because that's very entrepreneurial type thinking,
Right.
and I love the challenge of it. But we, like I said, we overcame a lot of obstacles, including getting even a license to the Bible, which I didn't, to tell you how ignorant I was. I didn't even know that people own the Bible. I kind of thought it was free. I had no idea. But the Bible translations that you and I read, the modern ones, all have copyrights, and people that had worked on the translation. And so that was one of the big hurdles for this website. And we got through all that, and of course, launched the website in September of 2007. By December, it was clear that people weren't coming back to it. They'd go visit it. Lots of people visited it, but they didn't come back. So we decided we would uh, shut the website down. That, I mean, I'm not afraid to start things and stop things. In fact, I kind of feel like it's only when you acknowledge that things fail that you actually learn from them. There's a lot of people like to pretend they haven't failed and use all this positive language
Right.
that and I was like, I know, but unless you like really acknowledge it, you don't go all the way down to the core to understand what was wrong about it. Like you keep trying to tweak it and make improvements. So it was through that process that we felt like one of the learnings was just fundamentally we had it on the wrong device. Like if we could get it onto a phone, we thought that might make a difference. The proximity of it in our lives would make a difference. And back then the BlackBerry was the predominant smartphone.
Right.
So we redesigned the website to display in a BlackBerry. As simple as that is, it actually was profound how it made a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And we could see our own use and others' use going up from accessing the website in the BlackBerry. This is now early 2008. Steve Jobs announces something called an app store and the ability to develop apps for the iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, based on what we see happening on the BlackBerry, we should try to build a Bible app similar to that website in the car dealership. Like the problem was that none of us knew how to build an app and
Mm-hmm.
there were no books on building apps. So we found a 19-year-old on our team that loved Apple. And those are about the only two requirements you had to have back then to build an app, or to be 19 and love Apple. And so we as a part-time project, nights and weekends, uh, we worked together to build this app over about 3.5 months. And it was literally a part-time, like, I don't know if this is going to go anywhere kind of thing. And we submitted it to Apple. To our surprise, they approved it, and it was there on the very first day of the App Store. So the App Store launched in July 10th, 2008. And that day, there were only 200 apps, 200 free apps in the App Store, and the Bible app was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So we were shocked. That was a Thursday. By Sunday, we were shocked to find out that 83,000 people had installed it on their iPhone
Right.
and just blew our minds. And so that's how the story began. And of course, today it's obviously grown to be much, much bigger than that. It is, as you asked earlier, it is a part of our church. It's a ministry of our church, but it's not designed to point people to our church. In
Right.
fact, we have content in the Bible app from partners all over the world that represent a pretty wide range of the church. And so even theologically, it's going to be things that are different, than just what our church, would do, because we cover like Pentecostal, Baptist, Presbyterian, just a really wide range on purpose, because we just want to get people connected to scripture. But it is definitely a part of our church. Our team are all staff members of the church.
Mm-hmm.
But we do have a separate entity, separate 501c3. We have most of our funding today comes from outside the church, from just people that see the mission, embrace it, and use it. But in the early days, it was funded entirely by the church, and now the church is very much a part of stewarding and leading it, but it's a separate entity in terms of what people give to and how they support it.
Well, and you guys have really intentionally carved it out and are now pouring a lot of resources. I mean, this is not a $1 million budget enterprise. This is like speak to that a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, no, it's no problem. So we were growing it relatively quickly. We're trying to keep up with the growth at the beginning, but I think because of how we were funding it at the time, primarily through the church, we had probably a heavy emphasis on efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
And so probably not knowingly, but inadvertently, we were stifling the growth of it. We were holding it back in just because we were trying so hard to like not overgrow the budget as we went. That became apparent to me about 4 to 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I really felt like we're not stewarding this properly. We have something that's significant, but we're almost burying the talent for how we should be stewarding it. But to change that, we were going to have to become much more aggressive on what we invested in it. And so
Mm-hmm.
at that time, we were at about $20 million annual budget, which is not small. But this year, we're sitting a little over $100 million budget. So we've grown by 5x in the last 4 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all 100% donor supported. Like we don't have any other revenue sources. We have no commercial aspect to the app. We don't sell data. We don't do any of the things that people might presume that someone would do. 100% of it is coming from people that just financially support it as a donation.
That's remarkable. So share, you've had some amazing milestones of recent. They continue to kind of rack up, but kind of share some of the metrics of the YouVersion app. Does anybody just call it the Holy Bible app? Because one of my phone that I use every day, it says Holy Bible. I know there's YouVersion underneath it.
Yeah, so we sort of backed into the branding backwards. So just candidly, we the ministry is called YouVersion. That was the name of the original website. That's where the name came from. It was the best name I came up with in the airport that day, and so it's unique, and so but that's the name of the ministry. Then we have a family of apps, so we have products. So the Bible app or Bible app is one of the products. Bible app Lite is a product that most people don't know about because it's used in other countries that have less connectivity and less capable devices. Bible app for kids is another product that we have. So then we have Bible.com as a website, property as well. So and we represent ourselves. But again, the branding thing has kind of happened after the fact. We're almost like a case study in unique ways to do branding because everybody I talk to is like, you need to change the brand. You need to do this. You need to change. I was like, listen, I kind of go with what works and it's been working. So we're just trying to clean up the brand a little bit on the backside. But anyway, but yeah, we've reached quite a few milestones recently, and I think the best part of the story for me is not actually the fact that we've had this kind of great launch to it and all this stuff that happened in the early days, but it's that the fastest growth that we're seeing is happening right now. So there's a lot of things out there that you're in the right place at the right time and things kind of take off and it's like a great story and would still be a great story to tell. But the fact that we're 18 years in, from when the App Store launched and we're seeing the fastest growth we've ever seen and we're setting new records all the time is the part that I'm the most excited about, in the story. And I think it's in part because of this pivot in the investment we've been making and like really the opportunity we weren't tapping into before. But it's also because I think globally right now we're seeing something happen with God's word that is really significant. Like there's a hunger for it globally. We see Gen Z buying print Bibles at record numbers. There's I think there's a quest right now for truth, and it's not too big of a surprise because we live in a world where because of AI we have to kind of question the veracity of almost everything we consume. Like, is this podcast real? Is this AI generated? These kinds of questions. And we never had to do that before. But so there's a downside to that, of course. But the upside to that is that people are hungry for what can be trusted and what is real and what is true. And there's nothing like the Bible. Like it's been carefully moved from generation to generation for thousands of years. And you can go right now to the Museum of the Bible actually has the Dead Sea Scrolls on display. I mean, here's an artifact from thousands of years ago, and you can look at the content of that artifact and see the consistency with what we have in Scripture today. And so it's just, to me, it's an exciting time because there's this hunger for truth and a hunger for God's word. And we just happen to have a vehicle to help deliver that in a really effective way. And it's completely free for people to do. So we reached a milestone last November of 1 billion unique devices that have installed these family of apps. And we're already, I think we're really close to 1.1 billion already. So just in that time frame, we've added almost 100 million more.
Congratulations.
And so it's just there's a real fast pace to it. We actually think the second billion, that took 17 years. We think the second billion will happen in 5, and the third billion will happen in 3. But I'm not sure if those are not conservative numbers because it feels like the pace is picking up really well.
That's remarkable. How many languages do you currently support?
Yeah, so the Bible app, I'll kind of give you a couple answers to the question to explain it. So the app itself is in about 70 languages localized so that if you open it in Arabic, for example, all the app is right to left instead of left to right, and everything's in Arabic and all the content's in Arabic. The Bible, of course, is in Arabic. So we do that for about 70 languages. We have volunteer teams that provide tech support. So if you write to us in Arabic, we have a team that answers in Arabic, to help provide support for the app. That's why there's like thousands of volunteers globally that help. The Bible itself, though, is in over 2,300 languages.
Mm-hmm.
So the app is in 70, but within that, there's a lot of languages where they might speak Spanish as their trade language, but their heart language is a much smaller language. And
Mm-hmm.
so we have the Bible in over 2,300 languages. We're just so privileged to be able to partner with Bible societies and Bible translation groups to be able to make that available. And we're very much committed as every new language gets translated that we're going to put it in the Bible app. And so we've become really big partners of the Bible translation work that's out there as well.
One of my favorite features is the ability to interact with it and actually log in your own data. I keep a prayer list in there for all my Acumen fellow members and my Acumen team, family members, spouse. It allows me to kind of customize my own user experience. I'm astonished by the number of different reading plans that exist. I've used that recently for someone who in my circle came to know Jesus, and so just kind of a good Kickstarter for their journey with Christ. So it's a powerful tool. I just want to congratulate you and your team. You really on responding to this call. I mean, clearly God's had his hand on this idea of YouVersion since it was birthed in the TSA line. As we're kind of looking at the time and the clock, I want to just ask if you've got any just kind of profound thoughts or encouragement. Our community is largely entrepreneurs, business owners, CEOs. In many cases, they would probably do what you thought about doing, which was saying no to Craig. Like there's not a day on the calendar that I would ever consider joining the church. But how you've used the enterprising skill sets God's given you to flourish in that environment. Maybe some walk away advice or counsel you would give to other entrepreneurs and business owners, even about using their own platform to impact the kingdom
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing I would say is whatever God's called you to is the highest calling. There isn't a higher calling. So Billy Graham's calling isn't higher than your calling, or wasn't higher than your calling. My calling's not higher than your calling. So I think sometimes it's easy, or can be easy, for an entrepreneur, a business owner, or a leader that's in the marketplace to think about like ministry that is somewhere else or something else. But if God's called you to it, then that's your platform. That's the place that he's calling you to make an impact for the kingdom. And I know that there's lots of ways to do that. I mean, there's obvious ways, which are he's giving you resources and you can use those resources to impact ministry and to do ministry, right? That's the common one. I think a lot of people go, got that, understand. And that's obviously a responsibility we have, right? To steward the resources we have. But beyond that, like he's given, especially those of you in these top leadership roles, just tremendous influence. What Steve Bailey did for me as a Christian business leader, you can do for others.
Amen.
Seeing something inside of people that they didn't see in themselves, and then watching how God kind of uses that to spark something else in their life. So Steve Bailey part of his legacy is the YouVersion Bible app, right? Because of the impact that he had to me as a Christian business leader. And so you just never know like how God's going to use the words that you say, the things, the ways you invest in people. You're never going to go wrong investing in people, and just the model that you set, and the way that you live and the way that you operate your business. And so just, and even the influence you have on peers, I think that's one that's always overlooked. I think there's a lot of CEOs, executives, even billionaires that I know personally that just sort of underestimate their influence on the peers and the doors that and the rooms that God kind of brings you in, and how you can influence those places. So these things may be obvious, but if for some reason they're not, I just want to encourage people to just connect those dots. I was someone, like I said earlier, that just never connected the dot that what I was doing could have a kingdom impact, or the way that I thought, could have a kingdom impact, until someone else connected it for me. And so maybe I'll help you connect that dot, for you, and you'll be able to see that for the first time. So I'd say that would be one thing I would encourage. And then, and I just think I'm just full of a lot of optimism right now. I know there's a ton of division and a ton of challenge and lots of things that people might be fearful of that are out there. But I believe we serve a sovereign God, and he's had his hand and understands everything that's going on, understands AI, all the things, right?
Right.
And so I don't operate in a spirit of fear about the future, but actually I feel what I see right now is just a huge opportunity for the gospel. And I feel like we're starting to see the momentum. So hopefully our story is an encouragement to
Right.
people where we see plenty of what we might deem as bad news. I just want to say there's a real trend line that's happening. And I really feel like this generation could be the most Bible engaged generation in history. And we're pumped to be able to be a small part of it, but we're definitely it should be encouraging right now. Our biggest days of engagement have all been this year, just in the last couple of months. It's not just getting the app on people's phones; they're actually using it. I mean, people open the Bible app 1 billion times every 36 days. And that number at the end of last year, that number was like 41 days. And so it's gone from 41 days to 36 days in terms of the pace is picking up. And so it's just, I don't know, hopefully people are encouraged but then also just carry a sense of responsibility with where God's placed you and the people he's put in your path.
Love it. That's perfect. Well, I can't begin to express the level of gratitude we have, and I personally have, for the time you've carved out to join us on the podcast. Are there any calls to action that you might challenge our listeners to? Is there any, as relates to your organization or personally engaging in a deeper relationship with the Bible and God and Jesus?
Yeah, well, the last part you said would have been the first. Yeah, is definitely what I would encourage. Is just there's no better way to find wisdom, discernment, to hear God's voice than to be in His Word
Right.
and to have that as a regular part of your life. If you're leading without that, then I don't know how you're leading. Like I don't even know like how you could possibly do it without that. And so I just would encourage people that maybe just don't have that rhythm or that discipline. We design the app with you in mind. We literally are trying to make it easy for you to make this a part of your everyday life. If you already are engaged with a print Bible in other ways, great. That's awesome. More power to you. That's awesome. But if you're struggling to be connected, we really try to make it really simple. This is not a seminary level,
Mm-hmm.
app that's trying to be approachable, and it's trying to help everyday people like you and me figure out how to make God's word a part of their everyday life. So I just encourage you on that front. We always appreciate your prayers, and then if God puts on your heart to support what we do or your business to support it, we have a lot of people that are doing that as well to put it in the hands of others. But more than anything, I just want it to be in your hand, and I want it to be something that you feel God's presence in your life because it's a tool that gets you connected to His Word every day.
Yeah. Specifically, as Bobby speaks to that, their website's uversion.com. There's a get involved drop down menu. You can become a sower. And I think that's how you refer to your support base as sowers. So encourage that. You can go to uversion.com if you're interested in that. Well, again, Bobby, thank you so much. In closing, I would just want to encourage anybody out there who is listening and watching today's podcast. If you're interested in finding out more about Acumen, our website is acumenimpact.com. We also have drop-down menus, one of which is driven toward membership. If you're interested in becoming a member of one of our CEO advisory teams, or if you're interested in leading, like maybe you're in a season of life where you've vacated a leadership position in your company, or you've sold or transitioned, and you're looking to lead other CEOs and pour back in. I will tell you personally, it's one of the most purposeful things I've ever done. There's also information there on that as well. AcumenImpact.com. Bobby, thanks again. God bless you, my brother, and keep making an impact. Keep giving them heaven.
Thank you, Drew. God bless you too.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.